what do we have here? Believe it or not, boys and girls, oh, let's see if I can. This is a Honda Element. And depending on where you run and how this thing is classed, it's going to be two separate categories. So I've seen these things run with minivans, which I really don't think it should run with, minivans. But I've also seen this thing run with minis. And as for running with minis, I think this Element is a tank. It's got steel spindles, it's got good quality struts, the steering's up way high, the steering's actually on the struts, so it's pretty hard to bend the steering. Motor's tucked in away, and if it had a good bumper on the front of it, these cars actually hold together very, very well. In a minivan class against the Dodge Caravan, I really don't think this Element would stand on its own 2 feet. But in a mini class, these Elements, you know what, they're tough, they're quick, they're very tall. The only problem is they're very top heavy. They got a very common bolt pattern, which is 5 on 4.5, so that's nice. It's got steel rad supports, which is nice. The upper fender supports are quite thick, which is always nice. But the main thing that sets these things apart is they're not like Hondas with every other suspension. The struts are actually struts. They're not inbound with an outer. Most Accords and Civics have an upper A-arm and then a strut that's inbound. This here is a strut spring combo that is attached to the steering. It's like old Cavaliers from the early 90s. There's more of the suspension setup. I've actually seen one of these go into a couple demolition derbies down near the Western Fair, and it honestly, it did really good. And being as big as it is, it actually makes it a target. Now, one of the downsides to this thing is the doors. What do I mean by that? The rear door is a pillar. So when you put the cage in, it's kind of more difficult. But as you can see, it's got quite a bit of crumple room back there. And I think these things, if you can pick them up cheap and the rules allow you to run them for mini class, I think that they're going to be weapons. But I've seen them run before. The only problem is they hold their value around me. A lot of these Elements are going for a pretty hefty price tag. If they drop down to the affordable range, I'd like to try one. But again, here's the other issue. If I bring it to a derby, will they put me in mini car or they put me in minivan? These cars look a lot like an Accord and a Civic combined. Honestly, I know there's not a lot of meat behind the rear tires on this thing, but I don't really see it getting into the tires very much with a donut on. It would take a pretty welded up Lumina or Camry to pound this thing into the tires. So this is something to keep your eyes on. If you can pick one up cheap, I would highly recommend running one. The only downside is, 1, price, and 2, you have to make sure, I repeat, make sure this runs with mini cars and not with vans. So that's a plus on that one. So guys, keep your eyes open, and if I find an Element, you guys know I'm gonna buy it, because I buy a lot of not smart decisions lately. So if I buy an Element, don't be surprised. Have to find one for cheap though. Thanks for watching, guys. See you back here tomorrow.